I have a 6- and 3-year-old boy. I was imagining. I was imagining it was one of them that got shot and the other saw it. I'm so sorry.
That was presidential candidate Andrew Yang on Saturday in Iowa, overcome by emotion after he heard one victim's personal experience with gun violence. Meanwhile, Democratic frontrunner Joe Biden is out with a new op-ed calling for the assault weapons ban to be reinstated, arguing that it worked. Joe also pointed out that there was polling showing that 70% of Americans support the ban on military-style weapons, which was enacted in 1994, but allowed to expire 10 years later. The vice president wrote in the New York Times, when you have that kind of broad public support for legislation that will make everyone safer, and it still can't get through the Senate, the problem is with weak-willed leaders who care more about their campaign coffers than children in coffins. He continued, there is so much we can do, practical, sensible steps that draw broad support among the American people. But we will see only more and deadlier shootings if we continue to dodge the core issue of unregulated assault weapons and high-capacity magazines in our communities. And Mike, it's a powerful op-ed that happens to be backed up by overwhelming polling. We've seen since Newtown a complete transformation in the polling, and the politicians have been slow. The Republican politicians especially have been slow catching up to the public, but the public's moving so far ahead of them right now, I don't know that they're going to have any choice but to start passing sensible gun safety legislation to stop the next killing in a church or a synagogue or a Walmart, a school or a country music festival.
Well, Joe, you're right. You're right. But I mean, how long have we been talking about these items? How long? I mean, Joe Biden's op-ed page piece today in the Times is absolutely correct. From the establishment of the crime bill in '94 with the assault bans weapon in it, you can prove that it has an impact. He also suggests amendments to that law that could be enforced now, implemented now. Smart gun technology, things like that. But again, I revert back to the question I just posed. How long have we been talking about these things? We've had children killed, babies killed in classrooms in Connecticut. We have had church shootings, multiple church shootings, synagogue shootings, El Paso, Dayton. We talk and we talk and we talk. And the United States Senate sits there looking at overwhelming evidence in the polls you just referenced. People favor the establishment of new, tougher laws, and nothing ever gets done.
People getting shot up in movie theaters, on college campuses, in elementary schools right before Christmas, at country music festivals in Nevada. The accumulation of all these events have gotten Americans to say enough is enough. And let's revisit those poll numbers, by the way. Quinnipiac poll from March shows that 93% of voters support requiring background checks for all gun buyers. Support, get this, Republicans, is 89% among people who are members of the Republican Party and 87% among gun owners. That means 9 out of 10 Republicans and about 9 out of 10 gun owners, like me, support an expanded background check. Doesn't mean they don't value the Second Amendment. Like me, I value the Second Amendment, but have been calling for this for some time and been viciously attacked by NRA TV ads, when in fact, what I've said all along is that Republicans and gun owners agree with me and not the NRA, not their 3 lobbyists in Washington, D.C., that are trying to get $6 million mansions and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on Italian suits. Now, there's also a recent Politico Morning Consult poll that found that 70% of all voters would back a ban on military-style weapons, and that includes a majority of Republicans. So, Jonathan Lemire, this is an issue whose time has come, certainly on background checks, but even on military-style assault weapons that are used in the majority of these mass shootings. Even a majority of Republicans now want there to be a ban on those type of weapons.
But any sort of ban on those type of weapons doesn't seem to be even in discussion right now. I mean, the Democrats in the House have passed some gun control measures. Certainly, the weight is on the Republican Senate, in particular Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who has close ties to the NRA, and to this point has refused to act on any of it. Now, the president on Friday, as he was leaving for the start of his summer vacation in Bedminster, New Jersey, spoke on the South Lawn and talked about that he did want to support something. He spoke in sort of vague terms, but he seemed to be throwing at least a little bit of political capital behind the idea of passing something, likely background checks. He made two claims. He claimed he spoke to Senate Majority Leader McConnell, and McConnell had signaled support. Now, granted, McConnell himself hasn't said that, and the president, shall we say, is sometimes an unreliable narrator when it comes to other members of his Republican Party. And he said he spoke to Wayne LaPierre at the NRA, and that the NRA would be willing to get on board. Again, according to the president, the NRA has not said that. Now, certainly, Joe, the NRA is, as you just suggested, the NRA is in a weakened position right now. Wayne LaPierre is engulfed by a number of scandals. This would seem to be the moment that if the president really wanted to go to bat for this, he could push forward. He could provide cover for Republicans, because we know the president has overwhelmingly positive poll numbers within his own party. That he could do this. The question is, will he? Will his attention span remain on this? Remember, he made promises after the Parkland shooting to do the same and never followed through.
We made promises after Parkland and did absolutely nothing. He made promises after, when the immigration debate was going, that he would do whatever Congress came up with, whatever comprehensive immigration plan they came up with. He broke his word there, too. So right now, a lot of skeptical Americans, that 90% that want expanded background checks, 94%, I'm sure they're wondering whether the president and Congress will actually do what over 9 out of 10 Americans are demanding that they do. Still ahead, presidential candidate Andrew Yang is going to be our guest this morning. Plus, NBC's Cal Perry is just back from the border, not the U.S. border with Mexico, but the Mexican border with Guatemala. He's got some fascinating reporting of the reality there. We'll bring it to you next on Morning Joe. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.